Hello! Shoyan here. I'm a Japanese carpenter. In this video, I'll show you how to install a staircase landing. First, I'll process the material, and then I'll bring it inside the house to install the landing. As usual, rough cut the lumber first. The material for the staircase is Japanese pine of 45mm thickness and 240mm width. I'll use the same material for the stepboard and the stringer. The riser, also thinner, will also be the same pine material. When I say rough cut the lumber, what I'm doing is checking if I can make all of the lumber that I'll need from this material. So the first step is to check the quantity of lumber. It's also important to check and confirm that it is not cracked and is in good condition. While checking the lumber, I'll cut it to an easy-to-use length. I cut the length because otherwise it'll be tricky to plane or finish. That is, the finishing will not turn out well if the lumber is not cut to a manageable size. Also, during the rough cutting, I make it a point to add about 10 cm to the length I finally need. Next, plane it with a planer. Since my planer is rather old, I'll lubricate it well before using it. I'm pushing by hand and planing only one surface at a time. These days, there's a planer that can be planed up to 4 surfaces at once. But if I push it by hand and plane only one surface, the material will definitely be flat. It's an old planer, but it can still plane well so long as it is properly used. After pushing by hand, use the automatic planer to make the thickness uniform throughout. I've finished the planing now. Next, I'll use a super surfacer. My super surfacer is so old that I can raise it but can't lower it. Well, I just keep using it. It can't plane the whole width of pine material at once, so I'm also planing from the other side. But that means it has to be planed against the grain of wood, so tear out will occur. I'll fix it by hand plane later during the finishing part. Now that I've finished processing the material, I'll install the columns at the site next. Last time, I jacked up the part of dozashi, which was sinking. It can't be lifted anymore, but I'll install columns under it so the dozashi won't sink anymore. I'm cutting the Z saw by the tin snip. I'll only cut the gemba part. If I do that, I can cut from the surface of the lumber directly. These days, there are advanced tools which can easily cut it from the middle, but I've been cutting with tin snip for a long time. Check the position of the columns with a laser. I had cut a piece of a column earlier, so I've placed it on the stand and set the laser on it. When using the laser vertically, you need to place the laser at a right angle. If it's tilted, it'll be misaligned. Therefore, it is vital that the laser is at a right angle. Now, process a column and install it. I won't make a tenon on this column. I'll connect it by imotsugi instead. Both the top and bottom joints will be imotsugi. I just cut it and there's no need to make mortise. It's a column just for supporting the load. The place I'm cutting for is a storage area under the staircase. There was originally a storage space here. I'll install a decorated pillar made of Japanese cypress in the middle of this space. It hasn't been decided yet whether the fittings will be installed here or not, so I'm going to finish it as a decorated pillar. Traditionally, a pillar was said to be Issun Senkan. Issun is about 3.8 kilograms. It means a 3 centimeter square can support nearly 4 tons. So this pillar can support a weight of 10 times 4 tons. Now, install the pillar. It has already been jacked up before, but I'll try to lift it a little more to make it easier to install the pillar. Once the pillar is set and the jack removed, the pillar will fit in its raised position. Check the vertical line of the pillar carefully using a laser. It's good weather, so it's hard to see the laser. Next, secure the pillar firmly with seismic resistance metal. This metal is so thin, but it's also extremely strong. I want to ensure that the top of the pillar is visible as much as possible, so I have no choice but to secure it horizontally. Also, secure the top strut firmly. Now, the weak part is supported by the pillar. I'm not saying it's perfect, but it won't sink anymore. Next, measure the height of the second level. The floor is in a different location as the first and second levels, so I can't measure the height as I usually would. So I'll use a laser and a ruler to measure the height. Then I'll divide it by 14 because there are a total of 14 steps to determine the height of the stairs. If the staircase has a landing in the middle, install the landing first. Then install the top and bottom straight stairs. In this case, the landing will be the 10th step. I'll measure the height of it. I can't measure from the floor also, so I'm using a laser and measuring its height. notch the column and install the upper stile on the landing. I'm processing the upper stile. Make a groove to insert a riser on the backside. Then process the upper end to prevent slipping. I won't make a groove for anti-slip on edge, but will only make a groove up to 10 cm from the edge. Now, install the stile. This column is now full of notches, because there were many notches originally. Measure the position of the stile. Actually, the location of the stile can't be accurately measured, so I must measure each of the 4 original columns and fix them to their average measurement. Process the ledger board of the landing. There is an odd notch where I'll install the ledger, so I'll fill it to make it flat. Then I'll install the new ledger. Because the floor tends to squeak on the landing, I'll screw it in a little more to the ledger board. Place the flooring against the stile and adjust the ledger. Then also screw the joist firmly with screws. I'll also reinforce the middle of the joist by attaching the lumber from the back. It would look best if we used Japanese pine flooring, but pine floorboards that can be used without joists, or even standard pine floorboards, are not sold. If you join 90 square centimeters of the same staircase material together, it'll surely crack from somewhere under the load after a few years. So I'll use a cypress floorboard that can be used without joists, which has the best color match. The top 3 straight stairs from the landing will overlap on the wall and ceiling below. So I'll cut off from the backside with space for those stairs. Install the floor of the landing. Make sure to check the right angle firmly and install it. The boards are cut at a right angle from the cut end, but I'll install them from the second one. If I install from the first board and the second board doesn't fit, all 7 boards will not fit. So I begin working with the second board that'll be attached to the stile, which I can visually check. That way, the rest of the boards will naturally fit together. Only the first board will be reversed. When reversing the board, apply bond to the entire mortise as well. If you don't, the mortise will become loose as it dries. This is why you need to apply bond to the entire surface. Install the last board next. The floorboard that can be used without joists is 30mm thick, so installing the last board is always tricky. But when dismantling it, I left one lumber on the wall. I thought it would be a hassle to remove it, so I left it there. But it was at a good height to squeeze into it. That made the crowbar work a lot easier. Now, I've finished supporting the weak part with a pillar and installing the landing. Next time, I'll install straight stairs at the top and bottom. That's all for today. Thank you for watching.